bearing in mind that this podcast is called Performance People, what we just like to do before we sign off and let you go is just for each of you to give us a really good tip that people can, and you've given loads already, but a really good tip that people can live by in order to perform better every day. So why don't we start with Eddie and then we'll leave the last word to Barry.
Well, one thing that I'm a big believer in is short-term goals. And I think too many people have these big dreams and aspirations, but aren't really willing to solve the immediate problems and get through the immediate hurdles. And that really comes down to keeping life as simple as possible. And by doing that, it's day by day. And it's ticking off boxes continuously, day by day by day, to get to where you want to be.
You can't ride a merry-go-round with one foot on the floor. That's the thing to remember. You're either on it or you're off it. If you're on it with passion. That's the only other ingredient you need. When I come to work, if I take my pulse beat is 3 or 4 beats higher than normal because I'm excited, because I have passion. And when I commit, like Eddie says, I commit 100%. If I fail, that's not a problem, as long as I've given my best. The good Lord will sort everything else out. Generally, it works. But just remember that merry-go-round. Don't come and tell me you're tired. Don't tell me I haven't seen the kids. Don't tell me I haven't got the energy. You're either on it or you're off it. If you're off it, God bless, enjoy your life.
As you can see, the compassion, the fatherly compassion you can imagine.
There's none. We don't deserve it. We don't deserve it. You know, just remember that merry-go-round. You want to be someone, you stay on it. I think I offended Eddie once when I described him not as my son, but as my project. If you understand the way we work, everything is a game. So we don't take ourselves too seriously. We work prodigious hours that other people can't keep up with us. So we're very, very difficult as a family to be. And although Eddie's an entirely different person to me and has grown up in a different environment than I did, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. And, you know, when I listen to him speak or I watch how he does things, most of the time I say, you know, that's exactly what I would do. And there are times when he does things that I don't recognise, and that's because he's taken most of the business to another level in terms of modern day techniques and more digital social media appliances that were beyond me in my early days. I'm coming to terms with them. But it is a different world. But what hasn't changed is just basic competition. I want to be better than him all the time in everything, from table tennis to consolidated balance sheets. So, and everything in between we compete on. But at the end of the day, you know, he's also probably my best mate because I've got more in common with him and we're on a common journey and we're changing people's lives, including our own lives. And the legacy we leave will be what we leave behind. So, you know, we don't take ourselves too seriously. God has smiled on us as a family. We do very well.
Kids of successful parents, Eddie, don't often have this crazy ambition that you have. It just doesn't necessarily always translate. Where do you think that comes from?
The struggle that you have coming from a successful parent or a successful family is being respected within your own right. I think that's the only struggle, really, you can have. Yeah, there's a mental struggle, emotional struggle, everything else that seems to be a talking point these days. But really, you know, if you're an ambitious person, you don't really want to be Barry Hearn's son. And when I was growing up, that's all I was, really. And I couldn't wait to tell people quick enough. If I was at a show, oh, do you know Barry Hearn? That's my dad. You know, and I guess I see a common denominator in that with a few people that I spoke to. I do, you know, the podcast with the BBC as well. And when I had Frank Lampard on, it's quite similar. He was in the year above me at my school, our school. And he was always Frank Lampard Senior's boy, little Frank, you know, young Frank. And when he got into West Ham, he used to work very hard. His dad would have him over the fields after school with the cones, and just I used to watch him, you know, as I'd leave. Oh, there's Frank over there. Look, what's he doing? And when he got into West Ham, it was just because he was Frank's son, apparently. And he should never have been there. They should never have gave him the contract, and went on to be one of the greatest England footballers of all time. And also, Frank Lampard Sr. went on to be Frank Lampard Jr.'s dad, what he was known as. And even with Conor Benn and Chris Eubank and people like that, same kind of thing. I think you just, if you're a winner, if you're competitive, you want to be better than everyone. And the bar was set by him. And the only way I can really be recognised as and respected as someone that's a good operator is to be as good or better than him. So the drive, I've always been like that, you know. And it's funny because at school, I wasn't, I didn't work hard at all, really. I got kicked out of Brentwood School after my GCSEs, and they sent me to because I could only get into some dodgy college sort of on the borders of East London. And it was really, it was at that moment really where they kind of like, everyone that I knew that went there just didn't bother going to the classes and just sat downstairs in the canteen. And I said to the teacher, what happens if you don't come to the lessons? And he went, nothing. It's up to you, innit? You can, so obviously you won't get your grades, but nothing we can do about it. And I thought, wow. Whereas at school, I was always fighting against, like I would be, one weekend I'd be at Eubank Ben at Old Trafford walking around, and then next weekend I've got this maths teacher telling me off. And it's a terrible attitude to have. But to me, it was like, who are you? Like, what are you telling me off for? Like, I've just been to, I know Eubank and I know Ben and my dad's Barry Hearn. And it was horrible looking back. It's embarrassing. But that's what I was like as a kid. And going to college kind of just changed your perception a little bit of, and I don't know what flipped, because I've got a sick mentality at work. Sick. Like my friends will say to me, you're ill. You are ill.
You learn by being around. Eddie, I don't know how many nights after nights he stood, I was on the phone rowing with Don King or Bob Aram or Frank Warren or someone, and he's just on my shoulder, not saying anything. But I got the feeling during those informative years that he was absorbing. And now I listen to him and I think, he may well have, I'm going to be big-headed and say, he may have learned at the feet of a master, but then he's taken it to his own level. And that's the job. Dads want their sons to be happy. We all want to help our kids, don't we? It's natural. We want them to be the best they can be, and we want to help them as much as we can. But there comes a certain time where the child says, okay, Dad, thanks for that. I'm off now, and I'm doing it my way. And he does loads of things that I think, what is he doing? 99 out of 100 of them work out. So it makes him right and me wrong, and he's found his own level.
Eddie, do you remember those moments where you kind of listen in to various conversations that Barry was having and sort of without realising it at the time, you would have been sort of paving your way to the future?
Yeah, even people who I work with now, I remember that we had two phones in the house. One was like the family phone and the other one was a voicemail, just an answer phone that he would pick up if it was someone important as they were leaving a message. And some of the people I deal with now, I remember hearing them night after night on the voicemail, of this phone in the lounge. So I would just sit in the office and, to be fair, when he was around, he would come back and we would play cricket in the garden or we'd have a game of football or whatever it would be. But then generally by sort of 7:00, it was him in the office and me sort of laying on the floor, just throwing a cricket ball in the air or, messing around with a football and listening. The sacrifices that I've given over the last 12 or 13 years, again, to the man on the street, don't really see it. But like life-shortening sacrifices, basically, is the truth of it. So you need to know when to go.
Every business we have, which is a lot these days, is run like a sporting contest. We prepare diligently. We're born to do what we do, and we want to win at all costs within the rules. And that's a luxury. It's beautiful now. I'm terrible because I just love telling the truth to everybody because it's an independence that sometimes you don't get, and it really upsets a lot of people.
What's the famous quote? If you tell the truth, you never have to remember what you said. I think that's a great quote.
That's right.
Ain't that the truth?
At my age, that's a real benefit when you get older as well. Because you can't remember lies, You can remember the truth. It comes naturally. But, yeah, it is so much that feeling of being yourself and being able to just say, look, son, this is how it is something that Eddie's picked up and taken on. And you'll lose people by it, because some people don't want the truth. Some people don't want honesty, funny enough.